Good morning, Trivandrum. Good morning. Okay, so thank you so much for inviting me for this wonderful session, TRIMA 2023. So let me first introduce our fellow panelists, starting with our woman power here, Dr. R.S. Jayashree. Dr. R.S. Jayashree is currently heading the Division of Photonics and Imaging, Biomedical Technology Wing at Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute of Medical Sciences and Technology, Trivandrum. She has completed her education from Kerala University and Cochin University of Science and Technology, and she has done her postdoctoral fellowship in the field of biospectroscopy from Monash University, Australia. Her areas of research includes optical and magnetic nanomaterials under the broad areas of biophotonics and nanobiophotonica for diagnosis and therapy. She is also working in the molecular imaging using optical and MRI techniques, vibrational, magnetic resonance, and fluorescence spectroscopic methods. She has published over 100 research articles. She has developed new methods of clinical applications of lasers, such as laser treatment for disc prolapse, osteomia, esophageal and bronchial tumor, as well as various veins. Her passion in clinical research has brought fruitful results in the diagnosis of liver fibrosis, oral cavity disorders, and brain tumor by quantifying the emission from inherent fluorophores. Major awards and honors received by her are the Sri Ratna Award by the Government of Kerala in 2022, the Best Woman Scientist Award ISAS in 2022, PSN National Award of Excellence in R&D in Rural Technology in 2011, and Endeavour Research Fellowship by Australian Government in 2009. She was the Australian Award Ambassador for 2013-2016, which is nominated by the Australia High Commissioner of India. She is the Fellow of Royal Society of Chemistry, London, Academy of Sciences, Chennai, and Honorary Fellow of Indian Society for Analytical Scientists, India. She has been enlisted as one among the women in nanoscience globally in 2023 by Royal Society of Chemistry, London. She is currently the chairman of Materials Research Society, Trivandrum chapter, and the task force and advisory committee in several national funding agencies like the DSTs, the DBT, the MHRD, and the MITEL. Give me a hand in inviting her to the stage. Thank you, ma'am. So next we have Paul Kronenberg. He's a Dutch leader and social changeoneer with a technical background in mechanical engineering, computer science, and commercial technology, and also in data communication system sciences. He's passionate about eco-friendly and cost-effective open hardware technology and architecture, and is dedicated to creating a better and more ethical tomorrow. Paul, together with Zabria Temberken, founded Kandari, which offers a unique journey in 5 acts curriculum, an intense, experiential, and hands-on learning experience that provides social change makers with all necessary tools to start, run, and sustain their own NGOs. In his public talks, Paul enjoys addressing questions like why and why not, and using the wit and humor to encourage people to think about what can be done differently to become a part of a solution of social issues we face today. Paul's motto that life is what you are happy getting up for, and he believes that whenever I have to becomes I want to. That is where the magic begins. He also believes that everyone is responsible for what they choose to do as well as what they choose not to do, and sees a huge opportunity for developing solutions to address many of the social issues we face today. So I would like to invite Paul to the stage. Hi, Paul. So now we have Mohammed Y. Safarullah. Most of you would be knowing him, but let me introduce him. So he was the assistant collector under training in Palakkad, Kerala in the year 2011 to 2012. He was the sub-collector and sub-divisional magistrate of Idukki, Government of Kerala in 2012 to 2014. Later, he was the director of Kerala State IT Mission and also the deputy secretary towards the Information Technology Department, Government of Kerala, in the time period of 2014 to 2016. So he became the district collector and district magistrate for Ernakulam in 2016 till 2019 and became the additional commissioner state goods and services tax department of Government of Kerala in 2019. And today he is the additional secretary of Department of Electronics and Information Technology for Government of Kerala, and he is also the project director for e-health Department of Kerala, Department of Health, Government of Kerala in 2020. So I also would like to say that recently he just completed his Master of Science in Public Policy and Management for Carnegie Mellon University, where he is specialized in digital transformation and analytics. The stage is yours, sir. And finally, our keynote speaker, Nandakumar, or he's also known as NK, who is the founder and CEO of Suntech Business Solutions. NK is a technology pioneer who in 1991 built one of the India's first enterprise software product companies. Any guess which is that company? Any idea? Suntech, yeah. So we are all proud of you, sir. Given his background in physics, NK was fascinated by the idea of creating something that solves fundamental human problems and thereby adds value. He applied this very philosophy to translate intellectual value into a business opportunity and thus has born Suntech. NK is recognized for building the first automated billing solution of India's national telecom provider, which was deployed across the country in more than 200 secondary switching stations, covering over 45 million subscribers. He's also credited with conceptualizing and building Cellrate, Suntech's flagship platform that is currently used by more than 150 clients across 45 countries and more than 400 million end users to provide an enriched customer experience. With nearly 3.5 decades of experience as a technology and business evangelist across industries, which includes telecom, banking, financial services, digital communications, retail, travel, and logistics, NK has helped shape the wave of customer-centric software platforms and solutions for pricing, billing, and product management, particularly in the transaction-intensive verticals. Under his leadership, Suntech has won several global awards. It includes the Celent Model Bank Award, Red Herring Global 100, Deloitte Technology Fast India 50, Deloitte Technology Fast Asia Pacific 500, and NASSCOM Top 100 Software Product Companies. An entrepreneur at heart, he has successfully mentored and invested in several technology startups. He holds several technology patents and pioneered and patented the concept of real-time value chain management in digital business ecosystem. He has a patent for developing software using the product application solution framework. And also his patents focus on not just on the technology aspect, but also outlines the business model designs for customers who can leverage these patents through Suntech products. As an author and speaker, NK is also known for his views on how organizations can accelerate their digital transformation journey without replacing legacy systems, also referred to as hollowing out of the core. He is an itinerant speaker at various thought leadership forums, including the CIBOS, European Banking Forum, 3G Mobile Forum, Indian Banking Summit, Gartner Summit, Association of Financial Professionals, and other leading financial conferences. NK has held leadership positions in several industry forums. He has served as the chairman of GTEC, the industry body of IT/ITES companies in Kerala, and also he was the head of CII, the Industrial Forum of India, Trivandrum Zone. He is the member of Product Council of NASSCOM, the Trade Association of Indian IT companies, and was also a member of World Entrepreneurship Forum. And he holds a Master of Science degree in Physics and postgraduate degree in Business Management. He has completed his advanced education from London School of Business and Wharton School of Business. What an amazing person. Over to you. So we will start our session with Mr. Nandakumar as the keynote address and followed by the panel discussion. Over to you, sir.
Very good morning to all. Good morning. So first of all, it's a privilege to be among such a wonderful panel. I was amazed by the kind of background for each one of you. It's quite fascinating. So when this topic was brought to my notice, and especially one of my friends, Vinod, talked about it, to be part of this session today. So I have experience all over the world quite a bit, been involved in various forums right from 2000 or 1999 onwards, I would say. Is that okay? Can you hear me? All right? So maybe I have to stand a little closer. So in the past, when you used to go to conferences, people will pick up example from Silicon Valley, the kind of innovation that's happening and things like that. But when I was reflecting on a global landscape, I was amazed by the fact that there is no other place other than India which has done the technology adoption to such a large scale and actually made a huge difference in the aspect of inclusivity. So let me start my talk basically using some of those examples. And it might look like a little biased, but I must say that it is truly proud for us to see that the kind of impact that has happened in Indian context in the last, let us say, 5 to 10 years. So let me start with one question. How many of you have heard of an experiment called hole in the wall? Anybody? Right. So this is the wall, okay? So this is an experiment. Can I use it? So it is a very simple experiment. One of these gentlemen called Sugandha Murtha, he was a computer scientist in IBM. He just dug a hole behind the wall of his building and then put a computer just outside into a slum where all he didn't do anything, just put this computer in front of that, so that the kids can use it, they cannot damage it, they can just use a keyboard. That's all what he did. But what he observed was quite fascinating. After a month, when he went and looked at it, not only that, all the kids in that slum were able to know how to browse, they also knew how to search, and went on to, on those days, this is in 1999, to a stage where they virtually become literate in using computer in no time, with no assistance. It fascinated him, so he wanted to prove that this is truly a repeatable model. So he took this experiment to one of the remotest part in Tamil Nadu, one of the village, where not even electricity there, and repeated the same thing, and results were even fascinating to the extent one girl in the village could actually tell that genetic mutation can cause cancer. So this model now adopted as the hole in the wall experiment, and this Sugandha Murtha is one of the educationists today, and it has taken the whole world by surprise, and he has got this education system right from Cambridge onwards. Now, why am I telling the story? Because this is the impact of technology, how a simple thing, just making the facility available itself, how it can affect, how we can utilize our capability to lift the humanity as a whole. Now, from there, I don't have to tell you about this story. That's the UPI in India. What other example you can cite for inclusivity? I hope you know this. This is where you want to give the offering to the cow or the bull as when they take around the houses. You can pay by the UPI. So if you just take some of the statistics of this, it's quite fascinating in the sense, first of all, how India has adopted UPI, how the digital payment. I hope I don't have to repeat this story, right? All of you know it. I don't have to. You know the story, right? The amount of impact it has created in a global scale. The transactions in UPI has surpassed the global collective digital transaction. Not only that, this is now more countries are adopting UPI as a fabric, like Brazil and other countries. Now India is taking this technology to the global level. So, and it is fascinating to notice that one facility which is evolved as one of the privileged surveys way back in 1957 or 60s as Diners Club card. which is only available for highly privileged people in New York, is available to an ordinary man on the street, even to a beggar to do the begging. That is the level of inclusion technology can bring in, right? If you just consider that, how the power of this, right? But utilized in the right form, utilized with greater cause, utilized with greater purpose. And this is a fascinating story. I just want to tell more stories today, to be honest. Then just get into this Jan-Dhan account. You can see how India's gone into the state of something like almost the only unbanked is 1 among 5. In other words, 4 among 5 are banked today. Compared to our neighboring countries, I only picked up the neighboring countries. Whereas in Pakistan, it is only almost 78% is unbanked. Whereas we just have 20%, very closer to China, which is at 19.1. One technology adoption of Jan-Dhan account, I hope all of you know about this. I'm not going to explain because if it is a foreign audience, I should talk about it. So I'm not going to get into that venture. But just to bring the perspective of how the technology can bring an inclusion and at mass, at scale. Just to give you some data point, it is almost 25.5 crores accounts were opened in just 9 months. Sorry, 12.5, sorry, not 25, 12.5 crores account. Now, then I'm just fast forwarding, and then let me talk about this. What is a phenomenal revolution that's taking place? How many of you are familiar with the ONDC? Can I have a raise of hand? Yes. Oh, that's a very low. You should know about it. This is going to change the entire business ecosystem in this country. ONDC stands for Open Network for Digital Commerce. What it means is, it is going to be a government or semi-government infrastructure which is going to connect all commerce in the country with the kind of control which the objective which it holds is the biggest advantage. The number one, for people who are technologically aware, this is a protocol, not a platform. That means it's just above the internet protocol layer. So it is just available almost as a ether, if you want to consider. It is not a big protocol, except the fact that you just need to make sure that you register. So look at that. The kind of capability it offers is like, of course, it gives a completely, the objective is to, let me use their own term, is promoting fair competition, fostering innovation, ensuring data privacy and security, and reducing the concentration of power in the hands of few players, and empowering consumers and business in the digital commerce space. That's the objective of ONDC. I'll put it in simple for you. Basically, it is almost like building a large mall by government where anybody can go and conduct their business, and just paying a very fair, maybe almost not paying nothing. There is a small transaction fee, but compared to the kind of cost, 30% in today's platform business, it is absolutely nothing, less than 1% or something like that. I'm not sure what is the commercial, but it will be very small, as just like in UPI. What does it offer? Every business in the country can get connected to this. What does it offer? Guaranteed customer base, authorized customer base who are authorized by Aadhaar, who have at least an UPI payment. So you are guaranteed of your payment. And it also ensures that it is governed by the regulatory framework. That means government can, whatever consumer protection and other aspects, they can gradually enforce it. The technology allows them to enforce this on a continuous basis. And of course, interoperability, there's open APIs that from a technology point of view, it's many more. But to take it from a point of view of what it matters to you and me, it completely creates a digital infrastructure across the country, which is owned and operated by pretty much a non-profit organization. And they cannot make profit. So this is going to change the entire business landscape of the Indian economy to a great extent. No other country in the world has attempted this. This is a phenomenal initiative, and I wish if you are not tuned to it, please keep watching this space. You should, and it's already in trial in Bangalore, and there are some phenomenal results already coming in play. I just want to bring to the last one, the GPTs, which all of you have heard of GPT, right? Okay. This is an Indian version of it, is the Kisan GPT, but not a version. They have utilized the GPT 3.5 for providing farmers, intelligence to farmers, for all the crop intelligence in terms of what kind of fertilizer to be used, soil conditions, and that is bringing in the advisory service at scale to ordinary farmers just using their mobile phone. If you use GPT, how many of you use GPT? Just for your understanding? Okay, very good. So you know how fascinating it is, right? How intelligent it is. Of course, it has to be utilized with what is known as a new education called prompt engineering. That's a new topic which has already come in, called prompt engineering. If you know how to ask questions, you will get the right answers. So you should know how to ask the right questions, or prompt it in the right form, then it will give you the right answers. So this is the other thing. Look at this. What it means is the ordinary farmer just using their ordinary mobile phone is able to get pretty much the collective wisdom of humanity in farming. To that level it can go. Maybe to what level it is trained, I do not know. But potential of that is that. You know how GPT brings in content, how much it is synthesizing. And how many of you are familiar with the difference between GPT and the previous AI version? Can I see a show of hands? Yeah. From an ordinary person's point of view, what is the generative part of the AI is that the new model can actually can generate synthetic data, which other words, it can actually imagine. Think about it. Your imagination is your own synthetic data, isn't it? If you think about it, you got a natural input. Based on that, you are imagining. What does it mean? When you imagine, you are creating synthetic data. It does not exist. You are making it up. But it is related to that. If you consider that, the GPT model can do imagination and further learn from that. I might be stretching my boundaries a little bit, but it is the trace of that. It's starting with that. So that's the kind of AI power which is existing today. And I just wanted to bring all this. Of course, I wanted to talk about India Stack. You know all that. There's a huge thing. I mean, I could not leave this podium without talking about that also, but I'm not going to get into the details. But how all this are tied together to bring in the complete digital ecosystem is unparalleled anywhere in the world. And we should be proud that we are all part of this journey. Now, moving on from there, I just wanted to talk about today's business. And we are all in the management forum, and we are talking about us entrepreneurs and managers who are shaping the world of tomorrow. So I just want to bring this focus to it. This is what you see on the top. Sorry, I missed one. Okay, I'll go back to that slide, but let me cover this. You know the statement, right? The sole purpose of a business was to create value for the shareholders. That is, getting into your business today is all about optimize value for stakeholders. The sole purpose of business is to optimize value for stakeholders. And this is not complete without talking about who are the stakeholders. The stakeholders, I think this speaks by itself. Your customers, your partners, environment. Because without this environment, you don't have another planet nearby to go and live anyway, right? So that is the reality. So the environment is a very critical part of your business, a critical partner in your business. Then, of course, shareholders, of course, they are the people who are also putting in money, giving you the energy required which is money, which is equivalent to the energy for any entity. Then, of course, government, communities, employees, and regulators, and I already mentioned about the partners. These are the partners, and your job is all about optimizing the value between this. And if you do that, this is a sustainable business forever. And I just want to introduce towards the end, I'm just skipping one slide, which I already talked about. The need of the hour is moving towards what is known as a conscious organization. This is pretty much embodies the principle which I talked about. Basically, a conscious organizations are committed to creating value for its stakeholders. You know that nature, everywhere, it always balances the value flow. Nowhere value is accumulating. It always keep making that flow continuous and equitable in all directions. If you follow that, that is a perpetual model and enduring design model. If you embrace that idea, your business, as you keep, right, this is, I'm talking about even right from an atomic state to a galaxy, right? If you think about a physics terms, everywhere the energy is balanced, or the value energy flow is balanced. From there, if you go to the other level, the whole fabric of this. If you consider your businesses also as a model of that type, you have an enduring business which will always prevail and sustain. Just to give you a little bit of data points for a conscious organization, conscious organization should be, of course, purpose-driven, but the purpose is the most important aspect. It goes beyond generating profit and focus on creating value for all stakeholders. We talked about it. Then it is, of course, value-based and conscious leadership. That's a topic by itself. I'm just putting a few points for you to think through or research. And of course, employee well-being, environmental sustainability. Of course, this has become a focus for all business today through the ESG initiatives. And community engagement, and most importantly, transparency. Technology is going to bring in transparency. Businesses who are designed with transparency are the only one which is going to sustain in the future. And as a business, you should be able to add significant value in one of the chain, otherwise you will not sustain. Especially in the advent of ONDC and that kind of open ecosystems, if your business is not creating significant value or very distinctive value, your business cannot sustain in the future. With that, I conclude. Thank you very much. We can talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nandakumar sir. So now we will have the entire panelists to comment for 2 minutes on, I would say, what we have discussed, what Nandakumar has been discussing on specifically. There are a lot of things we have covered in the keynote, specifically starting with how India is progressing from an inclusivity perspective in multiple domains. As we have heard, how UPI has taken millions and millions of people at the ground level, and every one of us today use one or the other forms of transaction in the UPI. Then followed by, you have come across various new terminologies, especially the Kisan GPT. So there is a lot of work happening in the background of Kisan GPT, where our farmers are getting enabled with the GPT framework, especially the 3.5s and the 4s, which most of us have started seeing in our forefront in the Chat GPT ecosystem or the Bard ecosystem of Google. And we also heard about how business should be purpose-driven, specifically when in this new era of AI creating a huge socio-economic gap where people might create more and more wealth using the artificial intelligence and the GPTs. So Nandakumar has given us a food for thought why we should drive business specifically on the purpose-driven model, trust, value, and many elements of it. Now, I'll hand over this to Safrullah to give few comments on that.
Thank you, Robin. My initial observations are from the perspective of inclusivity for government and for society which elects a government. Inclusivity means including all the social groups together, including people from various strata, economic strata, and providing an equal opportunity so they have a better chance at excelling whatever they want to do in life. That to me is what inclusivity is about. And in that context, if you look at the UPI example, actually the foundations started much earlier. Looking it from the prism of inclusivity, at least I see 4 foundational pillars which has happened. The first one is inclusivity in terms of banking service outreach. If you see for the last 2-3 decades, through Reserve Bank of India and Government of India's initiatives and state government's interventions, providing a bank account, saving banks account to each household was a priority historically. That got extended to each individual. So what happens is inclusivity in terms of opportunity to access the banking sector. That is the first pillar I find in this particular area. The second is in terms of connectivity. Historically, as we know, some places had better connectivity, some places did not. Again, I see from the prism of this particular topic, rural-urban divide was historically broken, and telecom reach, the availability of connectivity, initially we started with STD, then 3G, 4G, now it goes to the 5G in selected areas, all this then through optic fiber connectivities, free right of way. That is the inclusivity I find in terms of reach of connectivity. Wherever you are, the geographical barriers get removed. The third aspect is in terms of business inclusivity, I find is outreach of PAN and KYCs, which again had technology element. So every individual who could perform a legal transaction, income, there was a concept of PAN, TAN, which was universally made available, easy access to it, and KYC norm also. KYC, the backbone was obviously Aadhaar, and therefore the filtering was done. This is the third pillar I find again, which brought all the citizens of our country together. And fourth one is making the smartphones available to everyone at an accessible rate. Right? So this also has a history, right? So therefore I find when we have a transformation like UPI which happens, it based on inclusivity on all these areas in terms of rural-urban divide, in terms of all sections of society being carried together. And that is what actually propels. That's what occurs to me from the keynote address. Therefore, it's also important when we mention about AI and other things. Inclusivity in reach for all sections is important. Least otherwise we create a digital divide increasing in the society. So these are my initial thoughts. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you so much, Safrullah. So next, let us go to Paul. So your inputs on that.
Okay. I would like to address a little bit, I'm a little biased in that sense because my partner is blind. So I'm going to talk a little bit about disability and inclusion. There's this one term, inclusion, comes from Latin includere, that means locking in. And Sabri has this wonderful example of an amber, where there's a fly inside. It looks beautiful, and there's inclusion happening, but the fly it can't do anything, right? And so we don't talk much about inclusion as such, but we use the term integration. Integration is a two-way process where you don't depend on the one party that possibly has the power to offer you to be included. With integration, and we came up with a model in Tibet where we worked with blind people. We started the first school for the blind, where it was self-integration or proactive integration. So where if somebody's empowered, and this is what technology can help somebody with, but the initial empowerment comes from other people. It's not a technical thing, right? It's somebody that tells you at one point, says, good job. And then you get this confidence, right? So I think that's one part that we have to maybe look into in terms of integration, so that it's going to be both parts, and everybody plays a role in this. I want to give one small example. Tenzin was one of the first blind kids that Sabri met in Tibet, and he said, whoa, you're blind, I'm blind too. And he said it with a lot of passion. And Sabri was wondering, what does he do? And he said, well, I'm the yak herder. So here's 5 steps that are important for all of us. 1, he had a task. If you have a task, you have value. If you have value, normally you are respected. If you're respected, you get dignity. And only then self-confidence will come. Now, a lot of people don't make it to the level of dignity because they are not let to make, or they are not giving that chance. It's the society that has so many expectations on people. It's, you know, usually it's your father and mother, they say, right? They have expectations, but in the end, it's society. There's this huge, pressure on people. So, and what do people do that never went to this true dignity? They fake self-confidence. And they become victims of advertisement, Hollywood and Bollywood. Blind people are not disturbed by that, which is a good thing, right? So I think it's to help or to use the technology to offer a more equal playing field. We have to look at how is it accessible, for example, for blind people. There are 286 million blind people in the world. You just mentioned banking. For Sabria, still today, it's very, very difficult to be independent on her banking abilities because it's very, very difficult, right? So there are some kind of solutions, but it's not really thought of that well. And I think that's where something is room for improvement.
Thank you, Paul. So we'll hand over the mic to Dr. Jayashree for her comments.
Thank you, Mr. Robin. So I would like to connect this to the medical field or healthcare. So I would like to say that when there is a need, there is a way. So we have seen during pandemic how we could get the inclusivity almost completely, whether it is based on mobile empowerment, mobile technology empowerment, or data transfer of healthcare providers, or accessibility to the rural India. So to a large extent, we could achieve that. So connecting this to Mr. Nandakumar's talk, so this all can be connected to through banking because we need accessibility financially and information database as well as the technology wise. Whether the technology empowered that is a question, but it is very clear that during COVID we could do that. Another aspect of inclusivity that we could get during the same time was the data, huge database that we could use and the use of artificial intelligence for the genomics and sequencing that we all know. We have come across several sequences of COVID viruses. So all those could be done only with the technology advancement, and that could include, we at the same time we know that pandemic when it came to India, it was first reported in Kerala. So the sequence then identified was different from what it was spotted in Calcutta or West Bengal. So all these various aspects of the virus itself and the inclusivity of the diverse patient community could be possible only through the advancement in the technology. So something like Chat GPT or Kisan GPT, maybe we can think of Health GPT in the near future. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So before we move into the question, I just wanted to get a brief, I'll just brief on what we have been hearing. So this panel we have been hearing is on technology and inclusivity. So I believe by now you have started hearing it from multiple domains, multiple spectrums. So Nandakumar opened the talk with the finance part of it. So he talked about the beauty of how a large society was brought together from a financial perspective and how the government could contribute to the point of inclusivity. Then that was taken up and we have been discussing on that here. Then several thoughts came out, like Safarullah was talking about how equal opportunities or better opportunities was created in this particular spectrum, and specifically the 4 pillars. So that was a real value add. So how the connectivity, the rural-urban divide that got reduced, the telecom reach, the smartphones have been creating a huge change in the world. And what Paul added is a very important topic specifically to the core of our heart, coming to the disability segment, how they have been getting treated from a technology perspective. So how the psychological twist is happening from a task to a confidence, so the various factors, and how we should create the equal playing field for everyone. Then Dr. Jayashree, it's a completely different view. You started hearing from a medical or healthcare terminology, and how pandemic gave rise to more of inclusivity specifically from a data perspective, because we were also using a lot of data during that period of time for DNA analysis and stuff, and how AI has been started in the area of genomics. Great insights. Now we will move into the question phase, or I would say various. We are going to discuss on some of the questions that we have been discussing here. So this is for Nandakumar. So NK, what do you think? You have been the creator of automated building solution. You have been the mastermind behind the Accelerate platform at the Suntech. And how have you ensured that your technologies are accessible and beneficial to all sections of society, and including those who may not be like technology savvy or who knows how to use technology? Let's think the elderly population or the differently able population. Okay, so that's for you.
So it's the space which we are in is actually a little difficult space for doing this, but I'll tell you how we are doing it anyways. So pricing or charging is anyways a negative side of the emotion, isn't it? When you go for, that is most of the time, when you go for, that is when you got the service, now I have to pay for it. So that's the time you're saying the positive side of the experience is getting the service. The negative side of the experience is paying for it. So first of all, you are in that space. So when you are dealing with that, the best experience which you can give to anyone is when somebody gets a price which is value to the service they delivered, right? Or the net zero of the transaction is zero. And net of the transaction is zero. Sorry, I made the mistake. So a pricing system, as we look at an algorithmically, is to look at how do you bring in an empirical model to represent the value delivered. That's the whole system's focus. So one of the area of my personal interest is called value chain management. So that's one of the patent area which I've personally worked on. And so the idea is very simple. Any business is in the business of providing some value to someone. Otherwise, they won't exist. In that process, they have to get value from others, enhance the value, and then make it available to the customer who value it. It is not about what you think is the value. The value is what within the receiver's mind. So if you can manage this ecosystem or this flow of value, you have a system which can give any business the ability and capability for not today's business, tomorrow's business, when everything is going to be transparent. So to put that in perspective, so we have pricing models which is same good being delivered on the street. It is just like you have got a beautiful coffee from a dhaba, you pay 2 rupees, you go to the 5-star, you pay 500 rupees. If the value is just for the coffee, you're better off taking it from the dhaba. If it is for the experience, you go to the 5-star. Both has got value. So how do you price these two contexts? Is the kind of algorithmic approach which you do to put that in perspective? I think that's where I can leave it.
Thank you, NK. So it was more about how the outcome is driven from your pricing strategy and the value chain strategy. And this opens up a very interesting question for Paul. So as you have heard, there is a huge system that's getting involved from a business perspective in the value chain strategy. Okay. Now coming into that, so what do you think your platform Kantari, which is empowering social change makers across, and how instrumental or how do you leverage the technology in this value chain to ensure inclusivity in the process?
Okay, so at Kantari, we work with people that come from the margins of society. So people have seen the dark side, rather the dark side of humanity. We work with, for example, people from East Africa that have albinism, and they are being chased and killed, and their body parts are sold as good luck charms. A hand goes for $75,000, and that's happening still today as we speak right now. So we train people that go back to their own community, and they are affected, and we call it change from within. It's very powerful because the people that have been affected, if they start doing this, their motivation and drive, of course, is intrinsic. Now, we had ex-child soldiers. They're now training ex-child soldiers in skills other than killing people. We have women that have been raped or faced domestic violence. They're now having women empowerment programs. Now, of course, technology plays a huge part in that. Well, for us, we would not be able to do our course that we have that will start next week again. Next week, we're going to have 24 people from 12 countries, hopefully. 2 more people are waiting for their visas. And so we would not be able to do this because, first of all, to find them, of course, we need the World Wide Web and, spread the word. And you could definitely help spreading the word for us as well, because we find it's difficult for us to find Indian change makers that much. So there's a scan outside, there's a little stand, there's a QR code, so if you could help spread the word that we exist, that would be great. Now, the technology, of course, we work with different spheres of change makers. We have a lot of people also with disability. So this year we have a person in a wheelchair, we have 1 person with muscular dystrophy, we have 2 blind people, we have 3 people with albinism. So from that perspective also we need to leverage that in our daily sessions. To do this again we go to the blind, right? Of course Braille is a fantastic tool, but to print Braille is very expensive, and people say it's outdated. Now there's a thing though, reading with your fingers is different than reading with your eyes or sound. The reading between the lines happens when you read with your fingers, not with hearing. So we have to balance that a bit, and what we promote is development of technology, and we have 5 Kantaris. The Kantaris are chilies, you know the chilies, right? And so a chili, very powerful change maker, symbol for a change maker. The yellow Kantari is all about technology. So yellow Kantaris come to us and they develop technology that will be made available for low or no cost, as you talked about the value of products, for people that are in a position that did not choose to be in that position, but should be getting that technology to take part in society. And here we go, inclusivity, accessibility. For example, Sabria's white cane, which is a stick. It's $200 in the West because insurance companies pay for that. So that could be, it's probably $10 to make, and I think it's not right, it's not ethical to make tons of money on the back of a person that didn't choose to be in that position but needs that cane to get around, right? So I think this is where if we use technology in the right way and we look at, again, pricing is a very important part, and people say there's no money to be made on white canes. I think there is. And, there's 286 million blind people in the planet, right? 40 million are fully blind. 9 out of 10 blind children don't go to school. I think that's a big market. And the margins don't have to be that high. It should be fair and ethical. And I think this is one approach that we have to look in. I want to add one point to your speech when it was about the social responsibility of organizations. I think in the future, what we now did with the course is we added 2 elements to the training for anyone. That's one is peace building. There's no sustainability without peace. And what does that mean? We need to learn how to deal with conflict. Conflict management is a must, and I think it's a must for everyone in every organization, so that people understand, even on the lowest level, right? If 2 people are disagreeing, how can we do that without, creating a larger conflict, right? To that matter, I'm a little bit ashamed to be part of the species that we feel, in power and above everything else in nature, where today, as I'm speaking, there's hundreds of thousands of people that go to factories to make weapons, and if that's not bad enough, tomorrow they go back into the factories to develop even better and more effective ones. We can do so much better. So that one element is So one element is peace building and understanding of conflict management. The second element is the environment. And I think on that planet, nobody can make money. So we have to have the environmental factor in everything we do. And there's a wonderful book from Confessions of an Industrialist. It's Ray Anderson. He started a carpet factory. And if you haven't heard his story, it's absolutely worth looking at. And the first thing he said, what can we reduce? And this is waste. And what we looked at, and this is a program called Inani, it's in our curriculum, we look at what we see as waste, that we turn this to value. And now we had the pandemic, and you mentioned it, the pandemic changed a lot. So we had our Lake Veriani, and there's a lot of water hyacinths. And we said, they're a pest. And we said, what can we do with this to make it into value? So we started making diapers out of the water hyacinths. And this is the only product that if it's full of shit, it's worth more because we can put the whole thing into the biogas. So this is, again, it's like, and technology is not just electronics. Technology is also the development of products that are, mechanically made and produced, but add value to us and the planet at large. So that's my...
That's great, Paul, specifically your example on how your entire value chain from starting, like your primary stakeholder identification till the value that you create from a pricing perspective makes sense. And I think the diaper example is mind-blowing. So from starting to end, you have some or the other product and the price value being managed in that system. Great. So hearing to that, now let's go to Dr. Jayashree. So you have been talking about how data is being used and also as an experienced scientist in the biophotonics and the image side of it. Now, how do you see the role of technology in creating more inclusive healthcare systems? Because healthcare is becoming more and more complex, price-sensitive kind of a system. So how do you see how we can start coping inclusivity into it?
Yeah. Healthcare is the right of every human being. However, unfortunately, in our India or country like India, it is the privilege that is enjoyed or accessed or affordable to only certain class of people. It is not inclusive to all class of, or especially the rural India. As of 2019 survey, our country is short of 4 million hospital beds and 2 million doctors and 4 million nurses. So at the same time, rural India has less of 6 times less doctors than urban India. So you can just imagine how we can achieve the inclusivity in a vast country like India as far as healthcare is concerned. So technology can play a lot, and actually in the last 2 decades technology has advanced, but still as we are talking about inclusivity, how far it could be taken care in all aspects, because healthcare is a wide field where you have to have multi-pronged approach. For example, again I am coming to the COVID situation. We have 900 million mobile technology users in the country. So that added to the advantage of reaching out to the people and providing healthcare online. Telemedicine, e-consultation, etc. could be possible with that. But when you look at that, again, when you come to the advanced healthcare providing system, for example, medical imaging, whether these techniques or this technology are sufficient, that is the question. And at the same time, if you look at the advantages in the technology, it has advanced. So by the late 90s, all the medical images were in a, not in a uniform format, okay. So the consortium of medical imaging manufacturers, they have brought out a uniform medical imaging system. All the formats should be in the DICOM format so that the data sharing, image sharing and interpretation, everything is uniform throughout the world. However, then we have to think of whether this data transfer is possible to the full extent. Then comes the digital divide. When it is considered, I have in my hospital DICOM images, of course in the next hospital, KIMS, they have DICOM images, but the transmittivity, whether it is possible, so that is the question. So that digital image, when you talk about the inclusivity, that affects a lot to the rural India, because they don't even have the imaging techniques, advanced imaging techniques or advanced healthcare facilities. So the access to the advanced imaging or advanced health technology is very difficult. And another aspect which not only the digital divide and the, what is that called, patient awareness and patient empowerment, that also affects a lot. Even though the technology has advanced a lot, whether the patients are empowered to use this technology is a major question. For example, dialysis kit. So dialysis kit, many companies are bringing out dialysis, portable dialysis units. How many of the patients are empowered to use it on their own? That is the question. So every aspect of things, if you look at, but at the same time we have advanced personalized medicine to a great extent, but when it comes to personalized implants, we have not reached anywhere. We have the facility to create 3D image reconstructed stent design and implantation available, but whether that is accessible to the patients of all segment is a question. So technology has to be in a convergence. The technology inclusivity has to be looked into. Not only the technology advancement, but technology inclusivity, technology advancements with focus to inclusivity has to be looked into. That is the message that I would like to give.
I think that's a great number or a huge divide that we see here between the urban and the rural hospital segment, specifically the healthcare segment. When you talked about the number of beds, doctors and nursing staff, I think there's a lot more that we can do in this segment. Specifically when you came into, I think it's very new. I have been hearing how even people are unaware of using those. The awareness issue of using the latest medical devices when it comes to portable devices and stuff. Okay, so thanks for sharing that information. Now let me go to Mohammed Safrullah. So as a government official, you have been working with multiple IT projects. How do you ensure that these projects have been used to promote inclusivity and reach all sections of our society, including the rural segment, and also we have a huge, as we have been talking about the digital divide and all those things, we talk about the digital literacy and stuff.
Thank you. The recent past few years, the focus is putting all the services directly to the customer through an online media. The idea is to remove the middlemen in the picture. So a citizen need not go to any government official for seeking a G2C service or G2B service. So you are removing basically the middleman. That has been the concept both at the state and central level. For example, if we talk about income tax, now we are removing this entire middleman stream, right? So earlier you had to go put an appeal or something like that. So that all has been removed. Similarly, at state government level, more than 800 services have been brought online, which includes the certificate services, license services, both the G2C, government to citizen, and government to business services. This is an enormous reach. If you go to eSevanam website in Government of Kerala, we can find that about 850 services are online. So what it brings is the power in the hands of the citizen to actually get access to the service wherever they are. Well, the second point comes is once you have made this access, it brings in a system of accountability also. The second point is what about people who don't have still the information about specific technical terms, there are general government jargons which are there, or who still have problem of reading, writing, uploading, or they cannot go to, they still want some assistance, right? They have some queries, they want to seek some assistance. There is some concept called common service centers, which are there, like Akshaya centers. So what happens is that citizen, for example, I want to get some certificate, revenue certificate. Still I have some doubts. So instead of that, I have an option of directly applying, but still I can go to an Akshaya center or common service center and pay a nominal fees of about 20 rupees and apply it online. So this facility is an option which is there. So therefore I can get things clarified. I can reasonably ensure that I have a delivery of the service also. This is the second aspect. The third important aspect, which as a country we are moving forward, is movement towards open data. So, for example, if you go to the spatial data, for example, spatial data, we have put about 300 layers of spatial data which has been done for the public in Kerala. We have this infrastructure called Kerala Spatial Data Infrastructure. This is one example. If you look at the government site also, n number of the transaction database anonymized have been put in. We are not gone for the health sector, but a lot of this general, anonymized data is already available. So what happens is it's available to the researchers, it's available to general public, things like logistic data is all there. So therefore, it brings in an additional level of, openness in the way things are done. Now, in this open data itself, to make government more, accountable and also inclusive, the moment if a government order is approved, today we have a system, it becomes on the public domain, by automatic. The moment a government order in e-office is approved in secretariat, it gets online, automatically linked in a few minutes. There is no discretion just to keep it, hidden. So this is one example. And we have gone for open budgeting, which means machine-readable formats. So Kerala last year also introduced that. So these are some of the initiatives under the open data, umbrella, which makes the government more accountable, which makes it more inclusive, I would say. Also, though it increases criticism, but in the long run, it's always good. And that's what we require in democracy. So these are the 3 points I like to stress on how government tries to make its service more inclusive. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Safrullah. I think it is a great insight that you have shared, specifically the 850 plus services and how the services can be used by people who are not much digital savvy through the CSCs and the Akshaya centers. But I have a follow-up question on this. Look, we have been collecting a lot of data, specifically when you look at the government data. There is a humongous amount of data that's being made available. And I'm not much aware of where is this being distributed or not. The reason being, look, many of our fellow colleagues might be wondering, how can we use this data for developing applications of tomorrow, or use this data for AI and create some kind of insights which government could reuse it. Like, let's take IC Force as an example. IC Force wants to take some of this data and use it. I'm not only talking about people in the IC Force, on the force segment, okay. So how do you see, or can you share, where is this data available? What is the privacy constraints of this data, and is there any digital divide that has been addressed in this particular data? Because I'm just asking this as a follow-up to understand how this can be taken up.
It's a good question. There are some areas where data sharing is much easier. For example, spatial data, non-personal data, all this is much easier. However, in terms of personal data, the absence of a foundational platform is missing. That is something we have to acknowledge. For example, in health, when we talked about this UPI, we mentioned about 4 pillars, right? If you look at the data privacy bill, it was introduced in Parliament, it was withdrawn because there were more than 100 plus amendments, and the bill itself had to be reworked, so it has gone to the standing committee again. So if you ask me today what is private data, what is non-private data, legally speaking, there is no framework. Though there are a lot of judgments, and based on that, interpretations have been done based on High Court judgment, Supreme Court judgment, but is there a law based on which it can be done? It becomes issue. So in terms of absence of a foundation, it becomes very tricky for the administration or governments to share. So if you see health space, hardly any data is shared except for research purposes, which I feel Madam would agree. because it goes through an ethics committee which has number of members and all those things. Whereas if you see, for example, online, if you see American Cancer Institute, it publishes a lot of biopsy data in anonymous format. I was recently looking at it and say that we have a long way to go. Because I would say the fundamental issue is absence of a legal framework. So the first step you would have to put in is put a legal framework, the regulation, and build an institution on top of it. In the absence of it, to go 3-4 steps forward actually will lead to a lot of issues on that.
On this particular point, this National Digital Health Mission, NSDM, they have addressed many of these consideration aspects. I was just actually, as you speak, I was looking at it. So number one, they're going to come out with personal medical records, which is shareable only on the patient consent. So any information which you create, a digital information which goes to individual's property. I mean, they have the full access that to manage through the DigiLock, utilizing the entire stack. And so it's quite fascinating. I had the opportunity to interact with the person who is heading that on a national level. So the way in which it's going about is quite fascinating. It could be, I haven't talked about it, it could be another major revolution in terms of anybody attempting anywhere in the world. So national, if you have some insight on that, that would be useful.
So NDHM, National Digital Health Mission, has been renamed as Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, ABDM. And in fact, Kerala was a front runner in terms of e-health. Today, if you see, we have 585 hospitals already running, churning out about 150, 1.5 lakh people go through an outpatient every day. That's the transaction which is happening. The beauty is that it is not only modern medicine, but various forms of medicine like homeopathy, allopathy, and other things, and extending it to medical fields of services also like Ayurveda, tourism, everything is done, both government and private. But still, having said that, we have a private policy, privacy policy, but there is no law in the country. So policy is built on law. Based on this law, the policy is general, and then rules, then which stand the test of court. Still, we don't have that foundational principles. So there, for example, I would tell you, since you have mentioned this, High Court of Kerala has stopped its expansion, the same program that you mentioned in Kerala. We are fighting for vacating that stay for the same thing. So any policy which comes under a legal framework, it has to stand the scrutiny of law. For example, I'll just take 30 seconds. The first electronic voting machine, where the election was held was in Paravur in Ernakulam. It was in 1980s. And the first full electronic voting EVMs we conducted in our country 25 years later. So there are two things. We have to understand about the technology and people's trust in technology. Both are different. We know blockchain, hyperledger, everything is secure. That is different. It is there for last 25 years. People's trust in technology is different, where we have to build administrative protocol. It has to stand the test of scrutiny of law. That takes a lot of time. And that in UHI, this Unified Health Interface, like UPI, which is being done, we will reach there, but government itself is putting a 10-year time frame because we have to cross the trust bridge.
That's great. That's great to hear how data and the privacy of data is being considered. I think it's not too long that we will all be using some or the other kind of data to develop algorithms and create a better India, better Kerala kind of activities. Thank you so much for adding value to that question. So now let me move to Paul. So you've been hearing about health. You've been hearing about how the data privacy and all this information. So how can technology help turn the I have to, your motto, into I want to for more people, especially for the marginalized or the underprivileged backgrounds, which I'm talking about is the people with disability, intellectual disability kind of backgrounds. So now we have multiple domains that we have been discussing. So how do you see we can add value to that?
Okay, I think the first point that was saying the hole in the wall experiment is, see, these kids want to do something. That's a huge power, right? So the slogan that I always use is, if I have to change this to I want to, that's where the magic begins. And this goes back for all of us. If I ask people what they do, I get two answers. I have to go to work, or I have to go to school. That's terrible, right? So luckily, Sabri and I, we found our passion many, many years ago, and we work basically, usually I'm in the campus between 5 and 5:30 in the morning. I leave at 7, 8 at night, and they say, and I do this 7 days a week. And people say, but you don't have life-work balance. And I said, well, I live. And I think that's the difference, right? So there is this project, DeFi. It's set up by one of our former participants. His name is Abhijit Sinha. And Abhijit Sinha, he studied at VIT, and he was very disappointed because he said, I spent 4 years and I didn't learn anything. So he started Project DeFi, and DeFi stands for design your own education, right? So it's like, design education for yourself. That's exactly, DeFi. And what he does, he makes nooks, maker spaces. So here is a child that comes into a nook. A nook has a computer, a facilitator, tools, and electronic and all kinds of trash. And this child says, I want to make a rocket. So the facilitator says, well, leave the nuclear head out for now, but you can start build a rocket. Within 2 weeks, this child built a small rocket. Why? Because he wants to. There's nothing bigger than an intrinsic drive of people. Now, the technology, we have all the technology, right? We have so much technology, and I think we should look at ways, how can we get this to create a more equitable, right? A more equality in the world that we are having. See, there are only 2 parts in life for every person that's been born, and that at this point is equal. There are only 2 parts. If you have more, tell me. I would love to know. That is 24 hours a day and death. Nothing more. Every living person on the planet, right? So now you wonder why people are not running more frantically around to find out what they can use these 24 hours a day, that is a gift every day, are being used for, right? So I do feel that with the technology that we have now, and especially see, social change is something, the world is in a constant change. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people are afraid of change, and they hear the word and they see it's kind of a threat. People love to be in their comfort zone and to make a difference. Let us focus, all of us here, let us see tomorrow, right, as an opportunity to see what we can do better, where everybody benefits, where there's no losers. And well, maybe we need the AI to help us as humans to get that done, right? Because let's ask the question on AI, how can we make it better for everyone that there's no people losing out? And I think that's something that we all can do, starting with ourselves, change from within, asking the question, what can I do to contribute, to be part of the solution? One of the biggest problems I feel right now is that we all think that somebody else is going to solve the problems. You know, it's not my response, somebody else will take care of it. That's not the thing. And looking away is a choice. All right, you said it earlier. We had one participant, his name is Anamutu, he's from Pondicherry. His father died when he was 5, he became a street laborer. Terrible youth. At 11, he was picked up by an NGO and he was became a photographer. And his heart was lost with the homeless people in Pondicherry. And he had to help them, and he found a lot of these old people, they died in his arms, and he had to bury them alone. Nobody was helping. He came to us, we said, it's not changed from within because you were never homeless. And he said, I'm going to try this. So in 2017, before Ochi, or when Ochi was happening, he went to the railway station in Trivandrum. He spent 3 days, he came back broken. He said, I've never been so hungry, thirsty, and cold. He said, but the worst thing was, I became invisible. Looking away is a choice. There are 3,000 people on that railway station every hour, day and night, that go through on average, and they all looked away. And I think we all are guilty of looking away. And I think that's something that we can, oh, that's the buzzer. Is that the golden buzzer? So I think we're looking away. And I think if we are a little bit more confident with ourselves and with our neighbors, we definitely have an option. And hopefully, maybe even AI is the solution to that better tomorrow.
Yeah, great adding that, specifically that story. And I think social change is really important, and everyone has to start questioning and be a part of it. So we are almost on the verge of the final round of our panel. So I think first let us take a few questions from the audience.
My name is Anthony. I think you know me. We know each other. Keltron. Nandakumar, do you think the banks will go redundant with quantum 10G coming and with no cash, digital cash coming? Banks will be out of business?
Do you know the most recent event on that context is what Apple deposit account? Have you heard of that? Now, Apple has started a savings account. In 4 days, it got $1 billion deposit. In just 4 days. It just happened last month, April. I mean, this news, yeah, as we speak now. No, this is in the US. So the account starts with using the same Apple wallet, no charges, no minimum balance, but you get 4.15% interest rate, unheard in the US. Right? So the point is, the whole banking license is Goldman Sachs, not Apple. So the banking infrastructure of Goldman Sachs, because it is regulated, the money has to be with them. Apple don't keep the money. It is in their account, so it's all protected as per the regulation. But the accounts belongs to Apple, right? I mean, that's essentially there on the systems. To come to the point, first of all, the money as we see today, the physical world is our own creation. It does not, the money by its fundamental nature is virtual. We created physical by printing the notes, right? So it has to go to its native home, which is digital. It's only a matter of time. So all the currencies in the world has to go digital at some point of time. If that's the case, the banking as an infrastructure has to become an omnipresent either or banking as service they call it as today. So the traditional form of banking will not exist. Somebody is saying. So you will have value-added services on top of it. And for example, the Apple is only a value addition on top of it. What they're doing, they're providing the entire convenience of their ecosystem to somebody to bank. That is why people are flocking. I'm just saying this 4 days, $1 billion. I do not know what's the latest today as we speak today. It's only happened in April 25th or so. I mean, it is as recent as that. So, to answer your question, banking in its current form will cease to exist.
The question is to Nandakumar again. You mentioned that just making technology available helps to improve matters. Now, if that is so, if you take, say, the last 30, 40 years when technology has actually exploded, it is also true that inequality has significantly increased across the world. Inequality has increased very significantly across the world and in India. So, is technology really so good in ensuring inclusivity?
The biggest advantage of technology today is that it is a fabric in which you can build the future society. The physical way of existence the way in which we consume the resources and infrastructure and the planet, for that matter, can be significantly brought down. That is the aspect of the resource optimization. Look at something like ChatGPT, if I take it. Of course, at the back end, it is doing a lot of computational cost, which is also being looked at. But bringing the whole human or mankind knowledge available to some human being who can use that as the basis on which they can further enhance. I do not know how it is going to shape up. I really don't know. Today, if I really go into the algorithms and details, I get scared. Because by no means, even today, because today it has got about 1 trillion connection, the ChatGPT. Human has got 100 trillion connections in their neurons. But the biggest power the AI possesses today, they can 100% replicate that intelligence to another unit. Humans cannot. So the way in which it can, if I connect, let us say, 1,000 of them, it is 1,000 times scaled. Or they can each learn from that point of view. So technology is going to come in. So we all need to be very honest. If you just leverage the technology today, no humans need to work. It is getting to that level of, as it exists today, you can create robots, you can autonomous robots, and which can do all farming for you. Nobody need to do any physical work. The food and water, you can do the cleaning. You don't have to waste the planet, destroy the planet like this. There is a huge efficiency possible, but it has to be acted with right mindfulness, right? That is the most important thing. If humans can reimagine their future at this point of time, it is going to make this planet maybe the heaven. Otherwise, it can get destroyed itself in no time.
So any more questions? We can take a final question. Yeah, over to you.
This is regarding the inclusiveness should not be one-sided, especially Dr. Jayashree, because the communities. I'm not talking about the Kerala alone. I'm talking about the entire country or maybe this. So the community should feel that inclusiveness is there, and then the conflict can be avoided. For example, in medical field, you can see the conflicts many times. So now the legal system, they are making it. But the legal system, they are making it without the community approval. Means it is going to lead much more complications. So what is the way that Dr. Jayashree can give some insight to that? Because this is going to be a very, very complicated situation coming in. Because the trust also was discussed here. The trust is the most important thing, because inclusivity cannot be on the one side, everything you talk about. Some of them directly people feel like, coronavirus or whatever is, but not in every case. The people should feel that the inclusiveness is there. Otherwise, there will be conflict everywhere.
Yeah, so this we can approach in various aspects. For example, if you look at, again, coming to the corona aspects, we never sought any ethical approval from the consent from the patient to share. But the data shared were all not with the patient details. It's even today, the patient data, whichever, including images, which is shared without the patient details, even though the ethics approval is there. So the trust is always there as far as the medical data is concerned. But on the other hand, at the same time, if you look at the database available globally, it is numerous tons of data are available, from which only we could generate all the what is called the ground glass images and the CT images, AI-based data retrieval. All those things are available already in the database. So privacy of the patient database sharing is always taken care. That is what is I believe. So there is nothing available on the public domain as of today. I think this is what you asked.
I think he has a follow-up question.
Well, basically now we are coming out all together. We are coming out with a new law, but whether it has got the trust of the people, it's a big question, because a lot of WhatsApp communications, everything is going on that is going to lead to enormous conflict with the patients and everywhere. So what is the way out that there should be a trust building exercise? Something is missing here. That's what my main question. That's not.
Yeah. I agree to that. The trust building mechanism has to be developed both from the government side as well as from the management side and also from the patient side. So you can, if you are looking at the news propagating in the WhatsApp, you can just see even from the patient side or from the management of the hospital or the fellow doctors or the government, all are responsible for that. So the trust development is not a one-sided affair. So we have to work together to build the trust when it is the patient affair.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jayashree. So on a final note, so we have been hearing a lot of good things about how to bridge the gap between technology and the word inclusivity or inclusion. So we started with a wonderful keynote from NK, where he talked about emotion. He talked about the financial aspect of it, how inclusivity in financial aspect of it, how government is trying to do things in the banking side of it. Then followed by one most important thing is the pricing strategy, the value chain that can be added in creating the more inclusive environment. Then we went to Paul. Paul discussed a lot of stories which he has encountered and how inclusivity from the Kantari perspective has been taken care, how technology is being used, how everyone, including the disabled society, becomes a part of it. Then we had the thoughts from our own government leader here, Safarullah, who has been talking from the, not only from the health perspective, but he has been also covering on the various initiatives that is related to G2B and G2C, that is the government to customer, and how this has been enabled in the last 10 to 15 years, and how digital literacy has been taken care. And finally, we have been hearing all the health-related activities and the data-related, privacy-related information from Dr. Jayashree. So it's a lot of information that we have heard in the last 1.5 hours. But before we close it, there's a few food for thought that I will just leave it to the audience. Inclusivity is really important. Diversity is really important. Today, we have all started catching up the technology world in a very fast pace, specifically the chat GPTs. I don't know how many of you even know about GPT before chat GPT. There has been GPT for like 2.5 years. We had several papers. Google has been publishing several research on that. Chat GPTs, bots, everything is exploding like anything. There is a huge socio-economic gap being created today. Loss of trust happening as we speak. Because I could see that there is a lot of data mismatch even when you start searching for certain things in ChatGPT, especially about the disabled society or the intellectual society. There is very minimal data that's there in the system. We have to be careful. We have to start considering everywhere, at least in our day-to-day activities. There is a society who doesn't have that power or wealth to use these technologies. So keep that in mind. Start working towards including everyone in your day-to-day activities. Let it be business or anything that you do. Consider them. Thank you all for being a part of this and wish you all the best.
Thank you,
TRIMA.
Mr. Robin Tommy. Thank you so much. That was so well moderated.
That was an interactive and wonderful session on the inclusivity of technology in various fields. Now may I request Mr. Sethu Madhavan, Management Committee member of TMA, to kindly hand over a memento as a token of gratitude to the moderator of the session, Mr. Robin Tommy. Shall we have Mr. V. Shashi, Treasurer TMA and DGM of KIMS, to hand over the memento to Mr. K. Nandakumar. Can we have a round of applause, please? I would like to request Mr. Unnikrishnan Gopinath, Joint Secretary TMA and President for Institution for Creation of a Self-Reliant Generation, to hand over a memento to Mr. Paul Cronenberg. I would like to request Mr. Paul A. Rathapillil, Senior Manager Federal Bank, to hand over the memento to Mr. Muhammad Y. Safarullah.
Request Mr. George Koshi, Joint Secretary TMA. Mr. George Koshi, kindly hand over the memento.
I would like to request our Wing Commander Ragashri D. Nair to kindly hand over a memento to Dr. R.S. Jayashree.
Thank you for being such an attentive and interactive audience, and thank you, moderator and panelists.